You're preparing for an important presentation. Your brain launches into overdrive. Will they think my ideas are stupid? Will they judge me? What if they question my competence? You spend hours mentally rehearsing, preparing for every possible objection, imagining hostile reactions. And by the time you're in the actual conversation, you're exhausted, defensive. You're so busy managing the conversation in your head, you miss what's actually happening in the room. My lovely, lean in and listen up. The truth bomb is you're not preparing, you're predicting. And those predictions are costing you everything. But here's what the neuroscience reveals. Your brain is terrible at predicting what people actually think. And the moment you stop predicting and start asking questions, everything changes. Welcome back, my lovely. I'm Sue-Ann Higgins, and this is the Strategic Leader Within podcast. Over the past two episodes, we've mastered concise communication and diplomatic pause. You've learned how to distill your message with the rule of three and how to regulate under pressure with your energy regulation protocol. This week, we're tackling something that undermines even the most concise, poised communicators, something that costs you your presence, your authority, and your influence. It's called mind reading. Here's the try harder trap. You're preparing for an important conversation, a presentation, or a difficult discussion, and your brain launches into overdrive. You're trying to predict how people will react. Will they think my idea is stupid? Will they judge me? What if they question my competence? What if they think I'm overstepping? You've spent hours in mental rehearsal. You've prepared for every possible objection. You've crafted the responses to questions people might ask. You imagine different scenarios, a hostile person in the room, the skeptical member, the brilliant colleague who might challenge you. And by the time you're actually in the conversation, you're exhausted, you're defensive, and you're so busy managing your predictions of their reactions that you miss the actual reactions. This is the mind reading try harder trap. And here's what's damaging about it. It feels like preparation. It feels like being thorough. It feels wise. But it's the try harder trap that's costing you your presence and your influence. Today, we're learning how to shift from mind reading to audience mastery, the ability to read the room, adapt in real time, and ensure that your message lands with people instead of the imagined people in your head. Let me explain what's happening neurologically when you mind read. Your brain loves to simulate. It's built to predict what might happen. This is evolutionarily smart. It kept our ancestors alive. If you could predict that a predator might be in the tall grass, you'd avoid it. But here's the problem. Your brain's prediction system evolved for survival threat, not for social prediction. It's not very good at predicting what people actually think. When you engage in that mental rehearsal, imagining how someone might react, your brain activates the same neural networks as if it's predicting an event that is actually happening. Your amygdala lights up as if the threat is real. Your body releases cortisol as if the challenge is actually present. You're in a stress response before the actual conversation even starts. But here's the thing. Your prediction is usually wrong. Research shows that people consistently overestimate how negatively others will judge them. We imagine catastrophic outcomes. We predict rejection and we prepare for criticism that never comes. But because your nervous system experienced the predicted scenario through neural activation, you show up to the actual conversation already dysregulated. You're defensive, you're anxious, and you're not present. Your listener picks up on the anxiety through mirror neurons, and suddenly the conversation becomes adversarial, not because of what they actually think, but because of what you predicted they might think. So you've created the exact problem you were trying to prevent. You miss real feedback because you're too busy managing predicted feedback. You miss opportunities to connect because you're protecting against predicted rejection. You miss moments of influence because you're defending against predicted criticism. The cost of mind reading is enormous. It costs you your presence, your authenticity, and your influence. But this is completely learnable. This is something you can start shifting today. Let me help you identify which leader savviness rung you're on for audience mastery. If you're on rung 1 or 2, you don't notice that you're mind reading. You get anxious before presentations. You assume anxiety means that you're not ready yet. You don't see the pattern. If you're on rung 3 or 4, you notice you're mentally rehearsing every possible scenario. You know it's not productive, but you can't stop. You feel trapped in your head. If you're on rung 5 or 6, you catch yourself mind reading. You can usually pull back, but it requires effort. Under high stakes situations, you slip back onto those old neural pathways and back into mental rehearsal. If you're on rung 7 or 8, you've moved past mind reading entirely. You prepare strategically, then you show up present. You read the room and adapt. If you're on rung 9 or 10, you're so grounded in the actual moment that mind reading doesn't even occur to you. You're fully present with the people in front of you. Which rung are you on for audience mastery? Be honest. This tells you exactly where to focus. Let me paint a picture of 3 scenarios so that you can actually see what it looks like at the different rungs. Rung 2 or 3 we'll call the anxious mental rehearser. Sarah has prepared her presentation for the board. It's solid. She knows her data. She knows her recommendations. But 3 days before the presentation, Sarah's mind launches into overdrive. What if they think my analysis is superficial? What if they ask about the market research I didn't do? What if the CEO thinks I'm overstepping? What if they have already decided against my recommendation? Sarah spends 12 hours creating backup slides for every possible objection. She rehearses her responses to tough questions. She imagines different scenarios, the hostile CEO, the skeptical board member, the brilliant colleague who might challenge her. By the time the presentation happens, Sarah is exhausted. She's already had the conversation in her head 20 times. What happens in the room? Sarah walks in defensive. She's protecting against predicted criticism instead of connecting with real people. Her body language communicates, I'm not sure about this. The board pick up on that mirror neurons. They become skeptical. They ask questions. Sarah interprets a question as criticism because that's what she's rehearsed, not curiosity, which is what they actually are. The presentation doesn't land. What's happening? Sarah's mental rehearsal activates her nervous system. Her anxiety is contagious, and the board feels her uncertainty. Now we're on rung 5 or 6, the conscious adapter. Sarah prepares her presentation. It's solid. She knows her data. But when her brain launches into mental rehearsal, she notices it. She learns to recognize the pattern. She says to herself, I'm mind reading. This isn't presentation. This is my anxiety coming out. I don't need to rehearse for every imagined scenario. I need to be present for the actual conversation. She stops the rehearsal. She goes for a walk. She feels grounded. What happens in the room? Sarah walks in calm, present, connected. When someone asks her a tough question, she doesn't interpret it through her lens of imagined criticism. She listens to what they're actually asking. She notices the board member in the corner is skeptical. So she addresses their concern directly. I notice some hesitation here, she says. Help me understand your concern. The conversation becomes collaborative. The board feels heard and Sarah's recommendation lands. What's happening? Sarah's presence is contagious now. Instead of defending against imagined threats, she's actually engaging with real people. Now look at rung 8. We'll call this the grounded presenter. Sarah prepares her presentation. It's solid. Her brain doesn't even launch into mental rehearsal anymore. She moves past that. She doesn't mind read. She just prepares strategically and shows up present. What happens in the room? Sarah is fully there. She reads the room in real time. She notices the energy. She notices confusion. She notices agreement. When someone asks a question, she answers the actual question, not the imagined threat underneath it. The board feels her confidence, her presence, her certainty in her recommendation. The decision is made in her favour. What's happening? Sarah's complete presence creates trust. She's not distracted by those imagined scenarios. She's present in the conversation with real people. Now let's talk about how you actually shift from mind reading to audience mastery. I work with 2 initial power moves here. The first power move is power move 52, ask better questions. The antidote to mind reading is curiosity. Instead of predicting what people think, ask them. Here's the framework. Instead of, they probably think my idea is risky, ask, what's your main concern about the approach? Instead of, they're probably judging me for speaking up, ask, I'd love to understand your perspective. What would success look like for you? Why does this work? When you ask better questions, 3 things happen. First, you get actual information instead of predicted information. You learn what people really think, not what they imagined. Second, you signal that you're confident. Confident people ask questions. Anxious people make predictions and prepare for the worst. Third, you activate the listener's prefrontal cortex. When people are asked a genuine question, the brain shifts into thinking mode. They become collaborative instead of adversarial. Here's the power move in action. You're in a meeting. You've just presented your idea. You feel people are skeptical. The old pattern would be, they think I'm in over my head. I should have provided more evidence. I should have prepared more. The new pattern using Power Move 52 is, I'm noticing some hesitation. Before I assume I know what you're thinking, let me ask you, what's the biggest concern you have about moving forward? See the difference? One is defensive. One is curious. One triggers threat. One triggers engagement. The second power move is Power Move 35, and this is setting up the team for success. This is the preparation side of audience mastery. This is how you prepare strategically instead of through mind reading. Before you communicate with a group, your team, your boss, the board, ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1 is, what does my audience need to understand? Not what might they think is wrong with the idea, but what's the essential information they need to know to make a good decision? Question 2, what's their perspective? Not how will they judge me, but what constraints are they operating under? What are their priorities? What do they care about? Question 3, what can I do to make understanding easy? Not what objections might they raise, but what is the clearest way to present this? What evidence matters to them and what language will resonate? This is strategic preparation. You're preparing to serve your audience needs, not defend against your imagined threat. Now, here's the coaching question that changes everything. What would change if I actually asked them what they thought instead of assuming? The answer is usually everything. Your entire stress response shifts when you move from prediction to inquiry. Instead of defending, you're curious. Instead of anxious, you're engaged. Instead of isolated in your own head, you're now in genuine dialogue. This simple shift from what they might think to what they actually think moves you from mind reading to authentic audience mastery. Here's what I want you to do this week. Step 1, identify who you mind read most. Your boss, the board, a difficult stakeholder, write it down. Step 2, reality check your predictions. Look back at past interactions. Did your predicted threat actually happen? Usually, if you're totally honest, the answer is no. You predicted judgment and got curiosity. You predicted criticism and got support. Step 3 is identify your predicted threats. For that specific person, what do you predict they'll think? Write down 2 or 3 of these predicted threats. Step 4, prepare strategically, not defensively. Instead of preparing for imagined threats, prepare for your audience's actual needs. Ask yourself, what does this audience actually care about? What do they need to understand? And what are their constraints? Plan your curious questions. Before your next important conversation, write down 2 or 3 questions you'll ask instead of predictions you make, such as, I'd love to understand your perspective. What's your main concern? Or help me understand what success looks like for you. Or what questions do you have about this approach? Step 6 is showing up present. Go into your conversation, ask your questions, listen to the actual answer instead of filtering it through your own predictions. Notice what's different. Now, let's just quickly talk about how AI can support you. The first thing you need to know is there's an AI prompt that you can use in Copilot or ChatGPT. Or if you're an insider of the Leader Within coaching experience, you get access to the Influence Architect, which will give you more specific, audience-specific communication strategies. But for now, let's just focus on the generic AI prompt through ChatGPT or through Microsoft Copilot. Here's your prompt. Tell your preferred AI tool. I just listened to a podcast episode about audience mastery. The power moves I learnt were ask better questions, power move 52, and setting up the team for success, power move 35. Based on the leader within method, I believe I'm on rung, and then state your rung on the savviness ladder for this skill because, and explain your situation, your example. So, for example, I mind read and prepare for imagined objections instead of asking real questions and adapt it real time. For this, you actually upload the savviness ladder, which you can get by clicking the link in the show notes. Continue and ask them to help you, 1, confirm what rung typically looks like for audience mastery. 2, give me 3 specific practical ways to apply Power Move 52. Ask better questions at my current level. So describe your specific audience as well in this step. 3, create a simple preparation strategy using Power Move 35, setting up the team for success for this important conversation, and then explain what the conversation's about. And 4, explain to me what it would look like at the next run for audience mastery. Keep prompting with, keep it conversational, actionable, not generic advice. You'll find the full prompt in the show notes, the links below. Copy that prompt, paste it into your AI, and you'll get and upload the savviness ladder, and you'll get some tailored support for your specific audience and your specific rung, and you'll get an idea on how to level up by asking what it would look like at the next rung. Let me tell you about Lisa. She is a brilliant operations director. I coached her about 18 months ago. Lisa had a reputation of being technically sound, but politically deaf. That's what people said. The truth was different. Lisa wasn't tone deaf. She was just too much in her own head, predicting how people would react instead of genuinely connecting with them. Lisa was at rung 3 on the audience mastery. She understood the concept. She just couldn't execute it. When Lisa came to me, she was struggling with stakeholder influence. She had great ideas, but when she presented them, she sounded defensive, prepared, and not authentic. She said, "Sue-Ann, why do I always sound so defensive?" I said, "Because you're preparing for an argument that isn't happening," I told her. We identified her mind reading pattern. Lisa predicted that stakeholders would think her ideas were too ambitious, too risky, so she prepared defensive arguments instead of focusing on what they actually cared about. We worked on Power Move 52, asked better questions, and Lisa committed to asking stakeholders what they actually cared about before she presented her ideas. She asked, "What would success look like for you in this area?" And then she listened. What she discovered shocked her. Stakeholders weren't worried about her being too ambitious or having, an out there game plan. They were worried about timeline and the resource allocation. So she adapted. She focused her presentation on timeline and resources instead of defending the big game or the ambition that she was presenting. The presentation landed not because her idea changed, but because her preparation changed. She prepared for the actual audience, not an imagined one. Within 6 months, Lisa was at rung 6 on the savviness ladder for audience mastery. Stakeholders were actively seeking her input. Her ideas were being championed. People wanted to work with her. Not because she became a better operations manager, she already was, but because she became present with her idea, with her audience, instead of trapped in her own predictions. That's the power of moving from mind reading to authentic audience mastery. Now, some of you that are listening are probably thinking, "Sue-Ann, I've noticed a mind reading pattern. I can see how it's limiting me, but I just can't stop. I need deeper support on what's driving my anxiety underneath." That's exactly what the Leader Within assessment addresses. For $67 Australian, you'll get personalised video coaching session with me. In that session, we identify the mind reading, the mind readings to see if it's rooted in perfectionism, imposter syndrome, status anxiety, or something else. I then give you a power move blueprint tailored to your situation. You'll also get an invite to our next group coaching cohort, the Leader Within Collective, so that you're supported. Now, don't worry about the coaching process. It's through video ask. You don't need to book a time. You just go in and answer the assessment and record your responses, and I get back to you within 48 hours with a personalised strategy. But for now, start with Power Move 52 and Power Move 35. Reality check your predictions, ask better questions, and notice what shifts. As we wrap up, remember this. Your audience isn't in your head, they're in the room with you. The predictions you're making about them are usually wrong, and they're costing you your leadership presence. They're costing you your authority. They're costing you your actual influence. The moment you shift from what may they think to what do they actually think, that's when you move from defensive to curious, from predictive to present, from isolated to connected. You're only one reconstructed thought away from the breakthrough you deserve. And sometimes that thought is, I don't have to read minds. I just have to ask better questions and listen. Thank you for being here, my lovely, for being willing to step out of your own head and into genuine dialogue. This week, identify your who your mind reading most. Reality check your predictions and practice asking better questions in low stakes conversations. Notice what shifts when you're curious instead of defensive. Your audience is waiting to understand you. They're not waiting for you to predict what they might think. They're waiting for you to ask. Until next episode, lead with presence and curiosity, clarity, passion, and purpose. I'll see you then.